Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today I would like to talk about this YouTuber which I found on YouTube today, and his name is the Dividend Nomad, and he talked about Geo Arbitrage in this video. Now I have been a dividend investor and been in the FIRE movement, or rather been in coastal FIRE for over 10 years now. And the dividend nomad apparently has been in China or going around in Asia for over the past 20 years. There's definitely something that I would like to learn from the dividend nomad. And this video really piqued my interest because he himself is working off of dividends as well. And he is using this small amount of money, or rather a modest amount of money, without being super rich, to live a comfortable minimalist lifestyle in a country that is not his. And so I would like to do some comments and give my opinions on his video. But due to fair use, I will prefer not to put his clips here, but put my views into the video here. So let's have a look at what he says. So in this video, he spoke about living in China for many years and how he's about to go on a trip for 2 months to the Philippines to have a fun time there, earn his dividends wherever he is. Basically, I believe his dividends come from a few portfolios of dividend-bearing ETFs. I've yet to check out a lot of his other works on his channel, but I'll be doing so. And it's really interesting because it actually talks about something similar to what Tim Ferriss said many years ago with regards to the mini retirement. So what Tim Ferriss basically said that many years ago in his book, The 4-Hour Work Week, is that in our lives, we shouldn't be waiting too long to go on the trips of our lives, basically. So in our 20s and our 30s, we should be looking towards living our life to the fullest and not, postponing it to your retirement age when you're 60, 65 and you can barely move anyway. By that time, you're probably going to need a lot of money to travel. And this is what I'm experiencing as well. Right now, when it comes to traveling, my parents, they are quite old. So when I travel with them, I do need to be concerned about their safety, how fast they can move, how well they can traverse the places that we want to go. And a lot of places that might be interesting to go is just inaccessible because my parents just can't move at the pace that most young people would like to move. So this is definitely one thing to consider going into geo arbitrage. He also mentioned getting about $3,000 to $10,000 in dividend income, and according to him, the portfolio is not very huge. It might mean that his portfolio is coming in at certain times it's 10,000, at other times it's 3,000. So yeah, that's definitely possible. You do not need a big portfolio for that. In my experience, I do have months where I get $5,000 to $6,000 a month and nothing for a few months. But that is because I don't have dividend stocks that pay me every month, but I go on a yearly calculation as opposed to a monthly calculation. So that's a difference there. He also explained a little bit about how global arbitrage, or rather geo arbitrage, works. And the main takeaway from here is you would earn in your home currency, typically US dollars. Then you would go to a cheaper country like perhaps Southeast Asia or China, where the currency is not as strong as the US dollar. And you would basically spend your US dollars in that local country. The example he gave as part of his video was if you were to earn US dollars and spend in pesos. This is definitely true, definitely, but not limited purely to places outside of your home country, as what he later mentioned. Geo arbitrage can also be done in your home country if you can find a place that suits you and it can cover your cost just by spending from your dividends. In fact, for me, I live in Singapore and I don't move to another country, and yet my dividends is still able to cover my cost. In that sense, I'm not doing geo arbitrage, but I am definitely seeing less of the world compared to a lot of these YouTubers, which is an interesting thing that I would like to take part of, but that's the topic for another video. He also mentioned people being afraid to get out of their comfort zones and travel the world just to see what the world is all about. And that's definitely true. I mean, you are already fixed in your location for so long, and you're so used to where you are that you have a routine. Not everybody would want to go overseas to live cheaply just for the sake of living cheaply. Definitely, a lot of people are talking about having a freedom lifestyle based on probably a luxurious lifestyle that they have seen on the internet. But one thing I realize is that it is attainable, but a lot of people are not willing to perform the sacrifices that they need to perform in order to get to where they want to go. The other flip side of going for the luxurious and high-end lifestyle that I see would be something like what the digital nomad is doing, and that is a modest dividend amount combined with a minimalist lifestyle where you can live however you want and ignore the image that you project. Don't bother with chasing trends or any of that celebrity nonsense that you see on Instagram, and that I can truly get behind. Later in the video, he also mentioned that geo arbitrage could happen within your own home country as well. So he did touch on that point, and that was basically he was referring to living in a different city compared to where you are currently based in. For me, that is not possible because Singapore is a city-state and we only have one city, and that is Singapore itself. But one popular destination that I want to say a lot of people would do this geo arbitrage would be Johor Bahru in Malaysia, which is just 45 minutes to 1 hour away. There is a huge debate on whether this is viable, or is it safe, or is it good. But in terms of geo arbitrage, when the Malaysian ringgit is currently like 3 times weaker than in Singapore, definitely moving over to Malaysia, which is like 1 hour away from the city center in Singapore, and you can cross both countries every day to get to where you want to go. Living a dividend-backed lifestyle in Malaysia while enjoying the pleasures that can be had in Singapore is definitely a viable option and definitely part of geo arbitrage. But more on that probably in another video as well, because that is a huge topic to talk about for sure. He also mentioned about how Southeast Asia is a good base of operations because flights between countries are relatively cheap at around $150. I'm assuming he meant US dollars between countries, and he could get anywhere, see any mountains, and he loves the climate in the tropics apparently. The one thing I would say is that this comes back to the idea that you should have a mini retirement when you are in your primes and not wait until you are in your 60s and 70s. This is because when he talks about $150 per flight, he is likely referring to budget flights. When it comes to budget flights, there are many issues that you have to be concerned about. Things like having to worry about check-in luggage, worrying about storing your overhead luggage, jostling with people. And if you're in your 60s and 70s, you definitely do not want to do that. You definitely want to have the luxury, so to speak, of a full service flight where you could actually get on board, be served a nice meal, have your overhead luggage space, as well as the check-in luggage space. And these are basically comforts which you would want to have as you get older. And if you're living a very much more, how should we say, non-minimalist lifestyle. He talked about not having any debt at all. So there's no mortgage to be paid. There is no student loans to be had. And that is definitely one of the biggest points that contributes to a nomadic lifestyle. Being debt-free is the one biggest thing that you can do to enable mini retirements and work on geo arbitrage without issues. Definitely, he didn't mention anything about a mortgage, and he also talks about not having credit card debt. There is a slight difference between not having credit card debt and not using a credit card, that's for sure. One important thing that I found was that you can actually use a credit card. Just remember that you have to cover the credit card cost every month. And also, when he says being debt-free, I'm sure he means not having huge commitments like a mortgage or a car. There are some debt or commitments that you will always have, and that is things like rental for lodging, or maybe your handphone bill that you will have to settle. But this to be part of your operating costs and not so much the debt that he was referring to. One of the other factors that he contributes to his carefree lifestyle is the idea of minimalism. Traditionally, what I understand from minimalism is that people basically just don't own anything in the physical world. No big cars, no big houses, and basically live off perhaps like few sets of clothes, some equipment like this camera that I'm filming with, and travel the world and see the world with whatever small possessions you have. I think he also mentioned about how when he's traveling on a plane, all his possessions basically come in the form of 2 luggages. And that is definitely a piece of minimalism that helps in his ability to create this geo arbitrage situation. A lot of people would think that minimalism is trying very hard to limit your life so that you can get that little bit of extra money when you should be, living life large and enjoying yourself. But the way the digital nomad does it is slightly different. And that is one way that I definitely get behind. The idea of minimalism here is to reduce the physical possessions that you have. So instead of having a big house and a fancy car to drive around, you would have a modest apartment, maybe like 1 room or 2 rooms, and travel around by public transport, perhaps Uber or the train or the buses available in your region. So using these and being free of physical possessions allows you to move wherever you want and pretty much be mobile however you like. For minimalism, people also have to realize that reducing your physical possessions is allowing you to experience more in life. For the minimalists, basically the idea is to experience more in life as opposed to owning the latest gadget or owning the best designer labels. It is all about the experience. So if you're into experiences, this minimalist lifestyle would definitely be something to consider. If you're interested to know more about the minimalist lifestyle, do leave a message in the comments. So in the video, he gave a quick summary of basically how his day would turn out. And he says he wakes up, cooks breakfast, goes to the gym, comes back and cooks lunch, and perhaps for dinner he might go out and enjoy himself. And this is definitely very doable. One thing about reducing your cost definitely is to reduce eating out, no matter how cheap the area is. In Singapore, we do have hawker centers that allow for relatively cheap eats. You could probably get a good meal for $6 to $8 in Singapore in a hawker center. But if you're willing to cook, and cooking is actually good for trying to live a healthy lifestyle because the food outside really is quite bad. If you're willing to cook, you would definitely reduce your costs by a lot. And working within a $2,000 budget a month as a minimalist is definitely very doable. In the video, he also mentioned that being able to get $2,000 a month in dividends might take you a bit of time. And yes, it does take you a bit of time, but probably getting some experience under your belt and trying out different stocks, you could probably do it in 5-6 years if you're really slow. In fact, he also mentioned things like selling stuff. So things like probably digital products, services. You could actually sell consultancy services on the internet and try and help people achieve some goal of theirs. That's for sure. So $2,000 per month is definitely doable in terms of dividends. And this $2,000 a month is going to supercharge your life. Basically, what I understand from this video is that he is not stopping work just because he is living overseas and doing geo arbitrage. He is still working, but he has separated his income creation from his living conditions. So basically, his job doesn't require him to be in an office, and he's earning money from dividends, which is the main way that he pays for his daily expenses. But he's probably earning in other ways, like creating a book, or perhaps doing consultation work, or selling digital products, or anything similar like that, in order to get the extra money to further fuel his dividends, which will in turn further fuel his lifestyle. And that is definitely a very, very smart move. I myself am using dividends as a pillar of my expenditure, but I'm looking to also diversify my income streams by this YouTube channel, and basically also things like selling digital products, or maybe in the future doing consultation work as well. We also talked about how $300 to $500 in dividend income would also change your life a lot. And this is one thing that I see with a lot of other people as well. When I tell them that it is possible to get a small dividend amount, or rather you have a portfolio of like $1 million, and people will just raise their eyebrows and say, heck no, there's no way that you're going to be able to get that amount in order to get the lifestyle that you want to get. But you must remember, having $300 to $500 a month is going to help you a lot. And that portfolio is not going to be very big either. Having $300 to $500 a month in dividends would be maybe a few $100,000, even then. And besides, one thing I always tell people is, even if you don't make the goal, having dividends is like having someone else work for you and give you money. So what's wrong with even doing it halfway and getting close to the amount, or even some of the amount? Isn't $300 to $500 extra a month something that you might want to look into? Let me know in the comments. So one thing he mentioned in this video was that you need to have the ability, or rather you need to have the willingness to do things differently from most people. And that I totally agree. When I tell people about my lifestyle and I say that I am retired on my dividends, a lot of them give me a white look and ask me, why am I not working even though I'm in my 30s, now in my 40s? And they say, you're so young, why don't you just keep working? my answer to them is, if I'm already earning enough, why should you continue to work? And no one really has an answer to that, you know. Of course, if I were to consider having a family, you know, maybe a wife, 2 kids, a house, and a white picket fence, this lifestyle would not be possible. But being a single guy, well, there's that. You know, it all works out. And even if you are married, all right, it is still possible to do this dividend lifestyle if you manage things right. Of course, it really helps if your spouse is in on it and everybody is willing to work towards a common goal. But that's out of the scope of what I'm able to tell people. But I do have friends who are dividend kings, way better than me, and they definitely live life based on dividends, and they're living very free, very empowered lives. So that's what I wanted to say about the video from the dividend nomad, about how he lives abroad on dividends without being rich. Many thanks to the dividend nomad, and I wish him well on his trip. In fact, I'm also very curious to try global arbitrage for myself. Let me know in the comments what you think about geo arbitrage. What kind of feelings do you have about it? Would you actually move to a different country just to live cheaply and perhaps drop everything you know just to move to another country and live alone? Let me know in the comments below. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.